Hey, what's up? In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a semi-traditional Napa cabbage kimchi. We're going to start by removing the external leaves, the ones that are kind of rough. I find that they're usually kind of difficult to brine, so I leave them out. Alright, let's get to the cutting portion. We're going to go ahead and point the cabbage side towards us and then cut it in half without hitting the root. Rotate it 90 degrees, cut it in half again, and then we're going to quarter it. We're going to separate it in half and then separate those halves in half by pulling them apart. And now for the rest of the ingredients. Start with a piece of garlic, a carrot, piece of ginger, green onions, daikon or Korean radish, gochujang, gochugaru, and a mixing bowl. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and move a bowl to the sink, put the cabbage in the bowl. Then we're going to tear the small cabbage out because it brings a sweetness and we don't want that to kimchi. We don't want that to this recipe's kimchi. Then we're going to go ahead and cut out the root. And then after all the roots are cut out, we're going to go ahead and wash our cabbage. You want to make sure you get this washed very well. There could be dirt anywhere between those leaves. So make sure that you wash these guys very thoroughly. After your cabbage is washed, you're going to want to put some salt on all of the leaves. This is going to help draw out the moisture, which you want for your kimchi. I used table salt. You should probably use something like kosher salt. After it's salted, weigh it down with something really, really heavy. Okay, let's get on to cutting our vegetables. We're going to start off with the green onion. We're going to go ahead and remove the root. And we're going to discard those. We're not using those in this recipe. Then we're going to go ahead and get on to cutting the white part. Oh, no, we're not. Okay, this guy's dirty. Time for a wash. All right, with your newly washed green onion, let's go ahead and cut the white parts off, but don't discard them. You can use them in something like miso soup, or you can broil them with some chicken and make teriyaki with grilled green onion. The possibilities with green onion are endless. All right, now we're going to go ahead and take the green portion and chop them into about 1-inch batons, an inch give or take, and then just set them in the mixing bowl. All right, onto the carrot. We're going to remove the top and bottom of the carrot, and then we're going to cut it into, for this size carrot, about 3 segments, and then we're going to slice down the sides of the carrot and make a rectangle. Now you're going to take that rectangle and you're going to slice along the side of it and make these flat sheets. These flat sheets are going to make the next step very easy. You're going to take those flat sheets and you're going to cut them into tiny little matchsticks. This is called julienning. What you want to do after your carrots are julienned is, you guessed it, gather them up and throw them in the mixing bowl. Now we're going to take our soulless friend and cut him into more manageable pieces. You want to cut off, just like we did with the carrot, you're going to cut off the sides where the skin are. This is going to make this a bit more manageable for the next step. And nobody wants to eat ginger skin. All right, now that we have our ginger peeled, let's go ahead and start grating. You're going to want to be really careful with your grater here if you're not used to grating, because ginger, when peeled, is very slippery. There's no telling, okay, all right, that guy doesn't want to be here. Okay, let's pick it up and then put it all in the mixing bowl. And now we're cutting the daikon. Go ahead and remove the root. Be very careful. Okay, and we can see it looks good on the inside. Now let's remove that top. So with everything removed, we're going to want to go ahead and, nope, not cut the sides like that. That's dangerous. Okay, so what we're going to do is lay it on its side, which is a lot more safe, and we're going to lay large coins out. We're going to cut them into big boy coins. Extra large coins. This is going to make julienning quite a bit easier. Okay, it's basically the same principle as the carrot, but much, much larger in scale. Now, once we have the coins cut up, we're going to turn them and cut all the round portions off to make squares or square-like shapes. After we have acquired said square-like shapes, we are going to then do the exact same thing as we did with the carrot and make these squares into flat, even sheets. Then you're going to take your flat, even sheets and use your hand to push them so that they're all leaning on one another, kind of like dominoes. This is going to make cutting them into our batons, or julienning, much, much easier. Now, I would say you'll probably need, for a daikon radish of this size, you're probably only going to need maybe 3 of these squares if you like your kimchi very, very, very daikon heavy, which I do. I love the crunch of daikon. If you want just some daikon, then I'd say probably 1 of them. Okay, let's put all of our ingredients in our mixing bowl and start adding the best part of kimchi, the spice. Now here, I recommend using 1 tablespoon at a minimum, but if you want to kick up some of the heat, then add 1.5 tablespoons. All right, on to the greatest part of kimchi, gochujang. Okay, we're going to want to use, at minimum for this recipe, 2 tablespoons. That's a minimum. I like my kimchi paste a little more thick, so I use 2. Okay. All right, let's get everything in our mixing bowl and then mix it up. Some people are going to say wear gloves. Others are going to say don't bother wearing gloves. I say you should do whatever you're comfortable with. At this point in time, I felt comfortable wearing a glove. Okay, let's continue mixing. At this point, I realized, all right, this bowl's too small. I'm going to put it back in the other one. This is why it's a good idea to keep multiple large mixing bowls around the house. You never know when you're going to make kimchi in too small of a bowl. At this point, you're going to want to go ahead and mash everything together. Give it a real good, not mash, mash is the wrong word, don't mash it. You're going to want to mix it. You're going to want to keep mixing until it becomes a very recognizable red paste. It's going to look very Korean food-y, if that's even a word. Anyways, let's go ahead and go back to the sink. You're going to want to start by removing the heavy guy off the top and then pouring out any excess water that came out of your cabbage. You're going to repeat this salt process 3 times at a minimum, waiting about 30 minutes each in between. After you've done that, and you've thoroughly rinsed your cabbage on the final salting to get all that excess salt off, we're going to go ahead and lay out the cabbage on a cutting board. With the cabbage on a cutting board, we will more easily be able to cut it. That is the point of the cutting board. Now we're going to gather up our cabbage, turn it to the side, and we're going to begin slicing it. We're going to slice it into manageable pieces so that it is not only better for texture when it's time to eat it, but also so that it's very easy to put in our compact, tight fermentation vessel. Once your cabbage looks like this, it's a good idea to go ahead and run your knife through the large white parts to make sure that nothing is larger than about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Again, you want manageable pieces of the white portion of the cabbage for easier fermentation. Now it's time to get your fermentation vessel. we're going to go ahead and start by putting the cabbage into the fermentation vessel. Don't worry, everything here was sanitized. After we lay a little bit of the cabbage in there, we're going to mix some kimchi paste into the cabbage. You're going to lay probably 1, maybe 2 handfuls of the cabbage into the fermentation vessel, and then add a bit more of the paste and mix it up a little bit more. And then once everything has been put in here and mixed, and this process has been repeated until you run out of either cabbage or kimchi paste, at that point we're going to want to go ahead and put a lid on our fermentation vessel. And make sure everything is nice and packed tight, by the way. You want to make sure that you can get the lid on. Once we have the lid on, we're going to leave it on the counter for about 3 days. What's going to happen in those 3 days is we're going to get beautiful fermentation occurring with this kimchi. What you're going to end up with is a delicious, crunchy, savory, tangy, spicy side dish that goes very, very well with bulgogi or kalbi or pretty much anything that's served in Korean restaurants. This is a wonderful banchan, and I highly recommend that you give it a shot. In case you're wondering why I'm putting water here, it's to make sure that the kimchi is properly covered with liquid. What will happen if it's not submerged in liquid is, rather than ferment, it will mold. And you don't want moldy kimchi. You want fermented kimchi. So ensure that your fermentation vessel has water in it, at least enough kimchi juice or water to cover all of the solids in your fermentation vessel. All right, that about does it for me. Thanks for watching. Take care.